Hey everybody. So there's a lot of videos on YouTube about building a rig. There's not very many videos on actually, well, not that I've found. I mean, maybe I just haven't looked hard enough, but there's not a lot of videos about building a rig platform from scratch. So we already did the video on how to build the platform itself. But what I'm going to do now is just do one specific video about the couple tricks I've found about mounting a motherboard onto plate metal. And in this case, it'll be plate aluminum. So I'm going to go grab the motherboard. We'll put it on the platform and I'll show you how I go about doing it. Okay? Okay, so here is the 12 GPU rig platform that we built recently. So what I've done here, this is a BTC B250 Gladiator 12 GPU motherboard that I got from B's Crypto Mining here in Canada. So what we're gonna do is mount this. And there's no holes or anything, so we kind of have to do it ourselves. So what I've done here, a couple things, is I've situated the motherboard so that the PCIe slots are somewhat centered on the motherboard. So I just measured from the edges to the slots, and it's relatively the same. So this kind of offsets the motherboard a little bit. What I'm going to do is put an ATX power supply on the left here. That's going to power the motherboard. And then I'm going to put two server power supplies on the right. And that should give us plenty of room. So the dimensions here, I've set it back 2.5 inches from the edge of the platform. I don't know if you saw the other videos, you'll know that I've got a 1x2 here. So this is going to be sticking 1.5 inches in. So this gives us a little bit more room underneath to get our screws that come up here. Okay, so what we're going to do now, we've got it kind of placed sort of where we want it. I'm going to hold it gently, but I don't want it to move. And what I'm going to do is mark all the holes where I want screws coming up, okay? I know that's pretty straightforward, but might as well be as descriptive as possible. So what we're going to do is hold it gently, and just with a pencil, we're going to mark every hole where we want the screws coming up from the bottom. Okay, let's do that. Okay, so we've got the marks on our board here. What I did is after I pulled the motherboard off, I just put circles around it so I don't lose the marks. You'll notice on that particular motherboard, there's these two that are close together. I'm just gonna do one of those. So there'll be 6 mounting points for this motherboard. Okay, and so here's where you have some important things. The first thing what we're gonna do is we're going to take a punch and we're going to set it right on the center of our mark, and we're gonna take a hammer and we're gonna tap that, okay? And that's so when we drill our holes, they're just perfect, okay? So I don't actually have a punch. This is just a concrete nail, but it's a really strong nail. But you can go to the hardware store or Home Depot or whatever, and you can get a punch. They're super cheap. So that's really important. And that'll help it so that your mounting points are perfectly placed. So you'll see in the video, we're going to punch these. Then the second thing we're going to do is we're going to drill our holes after we've set our holes with the punch, okay? So this is the screw that I use. It's number 6 by 32 by 1.25 inches long, okay? So this is what they look like. These are the ones I use. Now what you want to do is the hole that you want to drill to mount your motherboard, you want to use a drill bit that's a little bit wider than your screw, okay? The reason is because it gives the screw a little bit of flexibility to sort of move. So when you're actually putting the motherboard on, even though you've set the holes with a punch and they're perfectly drilled, it still gives that little bit of movement there. So you're not actually, pushing the motherboard on. It just kind of sits in nicely. So that's what we're going to do next. We're going to set the holes with a punch, then we're going to drill the holes, okay? All right, so we have our holes drilled. What you can do, you don't have to do this, but it is good practice. Go to the hardware store and grab some emery cloth. And what you can do is go underneath and you see how your holes, let's see if this sits by itself. You see how the hole, they kind of have little pieces of aluminum sticking out here. So you can just take some emery cloth here and just kind of sand it down. It only takes a second and it makes everything go in a little better. All right, everybody. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take our screws that we've already showed you what they are. Is if you want to look at that, that's kind of what it looks like. And then what we have here is a 632 machine screw, nut. If I can get my hand in the right spot. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to poke the screw up from underneath. We're going to put a washer on it. Okay, we're going to put a washer on it. And then we're going to put a screw in there. Okay, so in this video, I use the words screw, nut, and I don't even think I say bolt. Anyway, use them. I use these words interchangeably and in inappropriate times. So if you're actually building this rig, I'm sure you'll figure it out. But yeah, I know I'm using the wrong word. Okay. And we're going to just do it hand tight. This doesn't need to be spectacularly tight, okay? So I'm not going to have a close-up on this. I'm just going to show you from a distance, and we'll get all 6 of them in. Okay, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. All right, so that's what it looks like when it's all done. So these are just that one screw with a washer and a nut on there. And these are just hand tight. Okay, I don't think it needs to be much tighter. That way it still gives it a little bit of flexibility just in case you were a tiny bit off with your marks there. So the next thing what we're going to do is we're going to take another screw and now we're going to set the height of our motherboard, okay? So I'm going to screw that on like this. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the height at about 1 inch. Okay, so I'm going to take a tape measure and set all the screws at a height about 1 inch. And that way it gives your motherboard some room in case you have to put a GPU in the number 1 slot. Okay, so otherwise it sits too low and it won't fit in there. And you have to like bend the tabs on the GPU. But let's get that done. Let's put all our screws in to set the height of the motherboard. All right, here's the motherboard. There is our screws and nuts that we've got set to height. So let's place it on there. Now, usually you got to kind of move them just slightly a little bit. So they don't usually go on absolutely perfectly every time, but close to it. Anyway, so I'm setting it on here now. Now, I'm going to have to put the phone down here and adjust it a little bit, but I'll be right back. Okay, that literally took me about 3 seconds. It's just that you guys are much more experienced about doing things with one hand than I am. I wanted to use 2 hands. So, yeah, that fit on there perfectly. No issues. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take another one of those nuts and I'm going to secure it down. It doesn't need to be super tight. Yep, that is mounting a motherboard yourself. Pretty straightforward, but you know, there might be some tips there that that you can use, and that way you can get it kind of perfectly lined up. Thanks for watching, guys and girls.